CBS Colorado presents this year's Girls in Science event at cbscolorado.com, inspiring girls to learn and explore STEM careers now and in the future. Sponsored by MSU Denver, offering undergraduate and graduate degrees. Changemakers wanted. Now, let's meet the mentor.
I'm Dr. April Hill, Professor of Chemistry and Director of Criminalistics at MSU Denver. When I was really young, the first thing I remember is I read this book about Eugenie Clark. She was a marine biologist and she would swim with sharks, and she discovered that they sleep in caves. And I saw this illustration of her scuba diving in this cave full of sharks, and I was just like, wow, right? Like, what an amazing person. And so I really got into marine biology. But then when I was in high school, I became obsessed with the X-Files. And Agent Scully was just like a huge inspiration. So that's where I sort of got the interest in chemistry and forensics. I took chemistry and advanced chemistry, and I just felt like it was fairly easy for me. I mean, chemistry's not easy, but it just clicked for me. In graduate school, I joined a group where we were working on developing methods for testing water for spaceflight. So astronauts who spend 6 months to a couple of years on the International Space Station have to have safe water to drink. And so we developed a technique. It's called colorimetric solid phase extraction, but basically you can pass a water sample through a little membrane, and that membrane will change colors based on what you're looking for. And so once we developed those techniques, we had to prove that they would work without gravity. And so that was why we got to fly on the Vomit Comet, and it was amazing.
That works.
So I teach a bunch of classes here, and in forensic chemistry, I teach them how to apply those techniques that they learn in analytical to things that are related to forensics, like arson analysis.
Dr. April Hill is the forensic chemist.
So typically if a fire starts, obviously the fire department is called. They will come and extinguish the fire, and then it becomes a question of how did the fire start. If they suspect that it was arson, which means that a person started the fire on purpose, then they will often check for what we call accelerants. So accelerants are things like gasoline, lighter fluid, anything that you would pour on a sample to help it burn. And so typically if there has been a case of arson, there will be some kind of accelerant present. When there's a case of suspected arson, typically someone will use a fuel to start the fire. So we have to simulate those conditions in the lab if we want to develop techniques that work well for investigating those cases. To simulate the conditions of an arson fire, we're going to let this burn for a significant amount of time, which is going to evaporate a lot of the gasoline that I just put on the sample. So now that we've collected our piece of arson evidence, we place it into an unused paint can, and we're going to add a activated charcoal strip, and we're going to place it on this paper clip so that we can just suspend it above our piece of evidence. So once we've added our evidence and our charcoal strip to the paint can, we can place it in the oven. So the oven is going to evaporate any of the accelerant residues from that evidence. So the paint can is going to be filled with that gas. So the charcoal strip is going to collect those vapors so that we can then analyze them with our instrumentation. So all those vapors that we trapped on that carbon strip are going to be dissolved in this solvent. So now that we have our sample, we're going to analyze it using gas chromatography with mass spectrometry. So according to this data, what started our fire was gasoline. My dad was a big inspiration for me, and my mom is the one who always reminded me that it's okay to be yourself. I guess I would give the advice, be stubborn. Don't let what other people think about you influence how you think about yourself. I've always loved chemistry. I've loved science since I was a kid, but I also love makeup. I love to wear dresses. I'm what you might call a girly girl, but I still love science. And I know there are some people who don't think those two things really go together, but I just don't care. Don't give up when you fail. I know girls tend to be really hard on themselves when they fail. There's a lot of research in that says if they're not immediately good, they think it's not meant for them. And so that's something that I want to make sure everyone knows, that you can always try again, and it might turn out better than you ever thought.
Learn more about Metropolitan State University of Denver and its 90-plus majors, 10 graduate programs, and custom degree options at msudenver.edu. MSU Denver. Changemakers wanted.